Hey everybody, welcome back to Ravenstead. It's time for another build. I'm going to build a Borderlands style lookout tower. Got a couple of layers of foam here. I'm going to build up a base for the scatter terrain. Just tracing out some reference lines, and then I'll use a craft knife here to cut away what I don't want. Don't worry, I don't cut myself. So just going to carve in a couple different layers into the foam. Gives a little bit of visual interest, and then too, when you're playing with miniatures, you have different levels, so it adds some interest to the game. I'm just carving away what I don't want until I get a base more or less the shape that I want. Something organic. And then we'll go in with some aluminum foil and give it a little texture, and then I'll glue these pieces together, and then we'll start building the tower. I'll work the edges here to give it kind of a striated stone look with a brass brush. And I'll make some lumber here. I'm anticipating building a floor in this tower, so I'm just going to get this done ahead of time while I've got a mess to clean up. So that's my lumber. Got the two pieces of the foam glued together, and now I've made some bricks with foam. I cut these at 1 centimeter by 2 centimeters in the anticipation of it helping me fit everything together. And still, I'm kind of sloppy with this. It gives it a good ruined look, but could have been a little bit more accurate. Build in a window here. Ended up making this 2 levels, so I just keep going up with the bricks. And then I want to put in a floor, so these are the floor joists going across, and then I'll build the stones in and around those big timbers. So you'll end up seeing them sticking out of the sides of the wall. I thought it was kind of a cool look. And just keep going up. This is kind of a ramshackled tower. It's been here for a while, so it needs some supports. Do yourself a favor. Don't forget to underprime areas that you can't get to. I probably should have worked ahead of time a little bit more with that, but you know, with a nice long brush, it worked out. I only got a little bit of paint on myself. And I wanted to use a rope to get up to the top level, so I made a little stick and climbing rope. Well, I'll show you a little bit more about that later on when we install it. Turned out kind of cool. And a little ramp going up into the back of the tower. Put some tread boards on there, and we'll just hot glue that in place. Can't really set a miniature on that, but you know, it's within 5 feet, so you know, within a standard move of a miniature. I'm gonna put in the flooring there. I've created a trap door there in the corner, and that's where that rope ladder will go in later on. It's not really a ladder, it's just a knotted climbing rope. Every adventurer should have some rope in their backpack for just such an occasion. I'm going to black bomb this piece the rest of the way. Just a mixture of Mod Podge and black paint, really scrubbing that in, make sure everything's filled in. And then we'll do some dry brushing. I've got a medium gray here. I'm just going to go over all the stonework and rock faces of the base. We'll start building in contrasts and shadows. You know, don't kill all those shadows, though. Don't go too crazy with your dry brushing. You can still see it. And then we'll go in with a lighter gray. And that'll bring out even more highlights. Trying to stay off the wooden areas for the most part right now. I'm going to end up painting those out here with a medium brown. Then I'll go over that medium brown with a lighter brown color, and then eventually going over it with a really light tan, and that'll give it a good weathered look. And that light tan kind of goes over the whole build, so that's my final dry brushing before I go into a little bit of green, and then we'll call it good. So there's the light tan color, and that just like immediately gives the wood a really nice weathered look. Also really brings out the shadows. So those shadows are super important to highlight all the details in your build. Again, you got to preserve some of those shadows in there, or the highlights really won't work that well. I've got a little bit of green. I just dry brush one color after the other, so my brush kind of ends up a mess, but it works. Kind of homogenizes all the different colors. Once those dry brush paints are dry, I'm going to go over it with a couple of different washes. First one here is a burnt umber acrylic ink mixed with water, and I'll just put that over the whole piece. I'll tilt it up a little bit so you can see, and just wash that right on, let it soak in. I'll go around the whole piece with this burnt umber acrylic ink, and then go in with a touch of bright green wash. It's just a bright green acrylic paint mixed with water. I do put a little bit of jet dry in there to kind of help it spread out. That's Vallejo Rust Wash, straight out of the bottle. I'm just going to drizzle that on here and there, kind of using the piece of terrain as a palette, and then I'll take a brush and just kind of move that color around a little bit. Once it dries out, it won't look like such a bloodbath. It just kind of blends right in with the color scheme. I do a little flocking. I've got some PVA glue. I'm just going to paint on flat surfaces where I want grass growing. Get that coated here and there, everywhere. There we go. Get a good coat of glue on there, and then I'll use some fine flocking and just sprinkle that on the piece, making sure to cover all those glue spots because they get kind of shiny. Knock off the excess, and then we'll go for another more coarse flocking on here. I'm using some watered down PVA glue for that, and then just sprinkle that on, stick it down, and then I'll soak it through with a little bit more of that watered down glue, and that'll help it really stick down. It gives a good texture. Don't want to spill anything because you'll get flocking stuck to everything. So I get a good mound on there, give it a little tap to set it in the glue, and then soak it down a little bit. And then I like to just go over it a little bit more with the fine flocking, and I think that just kind of ties it in, keeps it from looking too clumpy. There we go. I'm going to put on some vines. Just painting on some strings of glue here, and then I've got a mixture of lichen and flocking that I make my vines with. I just run that through a coffee grinder. There they are, little vines. Now we got to put our climbing rope in. That plank that it's tied to looks awfully rotten. Well, this is actually an actual rappelling technique. You can put a piece of wood or leg from a furniture or something like that across the edge of a windowsill and tie a rope to it, and it's pretty secure as long as you keep it up in the corner and don't use rotten wood. I got those flower clumps off of Temu. Was a little dubious about it, but they turned out pretty nicely. It's amazing what you can get on that site. Few more clumps of foliage. I think we're done. Let me spin it for you. Here it is, the Borderlands Lookout. Seen some weather. We've got good shadows on the inside. Pretty dynamic piece. I love how the light comes through those windows. It's really cool. Leave me a comment, guys. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me what you think of the build, and appreciate you watching another video. Got a couple of pictures for you. There's an orc inside. There's that rotten plank. See you on the next video. Thanks.